Under the bright sunlight and amidst the towering mountains, a group of people stood frozen, eyes fixed on a single figure. Lying there in defeat was Suho, the once mighty swordsman, now holding onto his broken sword like a man clinging to his last shred of dignity. His body was battered, his breath ragged, and a poisoned look of frustration painted his face. It was as if the world had turned against him. One of the people in the group sneered, muttering something about Suho trying to act all tough with his broken sword. Seriously, was it that bad to just let go of being a hero for a day? Standing nearby, Alex Morgan, the regretter, a warrior with more muscles than common sense, glanced at Suho. He felt bad, not because Suho was getting beaten down, but because it could have been easier if Suho had just joined their team earlier. But no, Suho had to be a stubborn public servant and do things the hard way. Next to him, Suzuki Endo, a mage whose staff looked like it could open a portal to your worst nightmare, couldn't help but comment with a scoff. She took one look at Suho and said, "Well, sword god, there's no hope for you. Clearly, talent isn't your thing." Oh, and she didn't like men in suits either. Hilarious, right? She's standing there with glowing dark magic, but Suho's the one with the fashion problem? Suho, gritting his teeth, looked up at them. The faces of people he once called comrades were now the faces of his greatest betrayal. He remembered the battles they fought together, the victories they celebrated, the smiles they shared. And now they were standing against him. It felt like every bond he had built with them had just vanished in a thin air. "We fought together. We celebrated together." Suho's voice cracked, his frustration turning into desperation. "How can you do this? How can you turn your backs on everything we've fought for?" Isabella, the unfeeling healer, without so much as a twitch of emotion, simply said, "It's unfortunate, but unavoidable. You're the only one opposing the operation, Suho. You refuse to fall in line. No empathy. No heart. Just cold logic." Suho couldn't believe his ears. "How can you betray everything we worked for? We conquered one of the disaster gates. If we take down the rest, humanity will be safe, free from monsters. But now you want to abandon that? How can you choose this path?" Hex Hood, Mr. Cool, Calm, and Collected, the group's archer with the chillest vibe, casually spoke up. "At least we don't kill humans, Suho. If we conquer all the gates, we'll lose our purpose. From heroes to thugs. You really want to be a target of fear?" Suho's heart burned with anger. After everything, Hex thought he'd just roll over and join their side? Nah, Suho wasn't having it. He rejected Hex's offer with a glare that could melt steel. Inside, Suho knew this might be his last stand. The poison coursing through his veins, the wounds that couldn't heal. He wasn't going to make it out of this alive. But that didn't matter. He could still do one thing, take at least one of them down, for humanity's future. If he was going down, he was taking someone with him. With that thought, Suho gripped his broken sword, a fire of determination lighting his eyes. The hero's final act, even if it meant sacrificing himself. The group stood frozen, sensing the intensity of the situation. You could practically feel the tension in the air, like when you're watching a movie and you know the hero is about to make a grand entrance. Suho was radiating power, his energy swirling around him, and with each step, it seemed like the universe was bracing itself for impact. Alex, poor guy, looked like he'd just seen a ghost. He had no idea what was going on, and Suzuki, ever the optimist, tried to play it cool. "Relax, he's just bluffing. He's a swordsman with a broken sword. What could he possibly do?" she said like it was just another Tuesday. But Hex? Oh, Hex wasn't convinced. He could feel it, something was off. There was something in the air, something about Suho's energy that didn't add up. Then in a flash, Suho moved. With a swing of his broken sword, he unleashed an attack so fast, it made the rest of the group look like they were stuck in slow motion. In a blink, Suzuki was out. She dropped like a rag doll, her lifeless body crumpling to the ground. Alex, poor Alex, wasn't much luckier. His arm, poof, gone. Like poof. The guy screamed in agony, and honestly, I think I heard it from here. Hex, quick as a flash, grabbed Isabella, pulling her to safety. They barely dodged Suho's strike. He thought to himself, that was way too close. He wondered how Suho managed to pull off such a move. Broken sword, poisoned body, and yet, that speed? Magic? Or just a really bad day to be on the other side? As Alex clutched his stump. Yes, I said stump. Isabella rushed to help. But oh, her magic couldn't heal it. Nope, nada. Her face went pale as she realized the truth. This wasn't just any wound. It was beyond healing magic. This can't be real, she muttered, her hands trembling. Yeah, this wasn't your average, oops, I tripped kind of wound. Suho, looking like a guy who'd been through a lot, broken body, glowing sword, and the world falling apart, finally took a moment to admire his weapon. Hex, watching from a distance, realized what was going on. No way, he whispered. The sword wasn't broken. It was a willpower sword. A sword formed purely from sheer determination. The guy was basically the poster child for never give up. Suho, grinning like he'd just won the lottery, gave one last surge of energy. With a smile that could only mean one thing. He was about to pass out or fall off a cliff. He was done. His body vanished over the edge, like some kind of tragic hero with a serious lack of cliff-climbing skills. But as Suho fell, a system notification popped up in his mind. Congratulations. You've reached Divine Sword Unity. Yeah, you read that right. Divine. With a list of new abilities flashing before him, he felt himself drift away, only to be greeted by the cold, eternal darkness. But wait, just when you thought it was over. No, he wasn't done yet. The darkness faded, and Suho found himself in a whole new world. No, not heaven. Not hell either. It was some chaotic city full of explosions, chaos, and random firefighters. A firefighter appeared in front of him, urgently trying to pull him out of the wreckage. Come on, kid. We need to get to the safe zone. Suho blinked. Safe zone? Am I dead or what? He looked around, confused. The place looked like someone had left the apocalypse on repeat. Explosions? Goblins? Assigned 4, Syndrome Station? Wait a second. Syndrome? That was supposed to be abandoned. What kind of glitchy afterlife was this? As if on cue, a goblin popped out from the shadows. It was like someone had pressed play on the world's worst RPG game. Just when things were looking really ugh, an arrow zoomed through the air and hit the firefighter. He collapsed. R.I.P., firefighter. But so? Oh, he was done with waiting. Without a second thought, he grabbed a nearby axe, and with the kind of precision that only comes from years of practice, or maybe too many hours of video games, he took out the goblin in one hit. And then, hold on to your seats, he looked down at his hands. No wounds. Nada. He was fine. His hands were steady. He had just leveled up, didn't he? Just then, the system pinged in his brain, like a video game notification popping up in the middle of an intense battle. Congratulations! You've met the awakening conditions. Choose your path: warrior, mage, archer, or healer. Suho stared at the choices, memories flooding back. Warrior. No hesitation. He had been one before. He knew this path. But just as he was about to choose, something strange happened. The firefighter was yelling at him to get to safety, but Suho stood there, frozen. Something didn't feel right. He needed to think this through. Goblins with glowing eyes were charging at him. But Suho? He just grinned. Don't worry, I got this. They're just goblins. I've faced worse. With that, he ran headfirst into the chaos, his body moving like a well-oiled machine, dodging goblin attacks, slicing through them like butter, and picking up a red axe along the way. Goblin Slayer time, he muttered under his breath, his eyes focused. This was his moment. Suho stood over the fallen goblins, cool as a cucumber. Goblins? They're like a warm-up for me, he thought, inspecting the goblin sword he'd picked up. He gave it a little test swing. Not bad, but not exactly Excalibur, he muttered to himself. With a grin, he got to work. Swish, slash, whoosh. It wasn't long before all the goblins around him were on the ground. Easy peasy, he said, wiping his brow. But something didn't feel right. He was still seething with anger. Maybe he'd let his emotions get the best of him. He took a deep breath, telling himself, chill, Suho. It's just goblins. Focus. Stay calm. Anger wasn't going to help, unless, of course, he was angrier than a goblin with a broken club. Then, out of nowhere, he realized something huge. He wasn't just here, he was back. Like back to the past. This was the ultimate do-over. A second chance to make things right. The air around him shimmered with holographic panels, glowing like a gamer's dream. Basic sword skills, huh? Haven't seen those in a while. Suho grinned, nostalgic for the good OL days. The goblin sword was small, but it would do for now. At that very moment, a firefighter, we'll call him Dave, stumbled over, looking like he'd just seen a ghost. He was clearly rattled, stammering. Are you a player? Suho nodded, giving him a calm, yep. The guy looked at him like he was the second coming of a game deity. But hey, that's just how Suho rolled. Now he had a big decision to make. The system asked him what kind of power he wanted to pursue. Easy. Healer. Because who doesn't want to play healer and save the day? Healing light F, The system flashed, congratulating him like he was some sort of legend. Looking at Dave's injuries, Suho couldn't resist. He walked up to the firefighter, lightly tapping his shoulder. "Don't worry, mate. I got you." A soft blue light radiated from his hand, and poof, Dave's wounds healed like magic. Dave blinked in awe. "Wait, what? Are you really a healer?" "Guess that's me now," Suho replied, all chill like it was no big deal. His healer powers were in full swing. Before Suho could even get a moment to breathe, the system congratulated him again, giving him a nice little reward, a beginner's sword. He summoned it, looking at it with a sense of purpose. It wasn't the sword of ultimate power, but it would do for now. Suho turned toward the glowing portal ahead. This was where the real test began. He didn't care if it was dangerous. There was something in it for him. "Time to conquer this gate," Suho declared, walking confidently. The firefighter, Dave, looked horrified, shaking his head. "You sure about that? It's dangerous. You'll die." But Suho wasn't having it. "I got this, Dave. Trust me." His memories of past battles flooded back. No way was he going to repeat his past mistakes. He remembered the time he almost didn't make it, thinking he could do it alone. He'd gotten too cocky and missed his chance to heal himself. Big mistake. But this time, he had a plan. A plan to balance being both a swordsman and a healer. Maybe a paladin? He didn't know yet, but the thought was intriguing. He wasn't going to let history repeat itself. As he walked toward the portal, he couldn't help but reflect on the faces of those who had once been his comrades. The same people who had betrayed him. This time, he'd outpace them. He'd level up faster. Time to show everyone I'm not the same guy I used to be. Before Suho could get any further, he stumbled into the thick forest. He moved quietly, his every step a soft splash in the wet ground. The air smelled fresh, but his instincts were alert, like a hawk on a hunt. Something was off. And then bam, he spotted a goblin? Or was it? A goblin lay lifeless on the ground, which made Suho raise an eyebrow. He muttered, "Looks like these goblins weren't so tough after all." Suddenly, out from the shadows, two massive hobgoblins appeared, their red skin glowing ominously. One of them looked like it had skipped leg day, just huge muscles and a serious, don't mess with me vibe. The other was slightly less impressive, but still looked ready to throw down. Suho smirked. "Well, look at that. Big bad hobgoblins. You guys sure you want to mess with me?" The hobgoblins lunged. Suho expertly dodged their attacks, but as he swung his sword, it barely scratched their tough hides. Not good. He needed a new strategy. Strength alone wasn't going to cut it. He had to outsmart them. But hey, if you're enjoying this ride through goblins, hobgoblins, and the occasional power-up, don't forget to hit that like button, because this journey is just getting started. Who knows what's lurking behind the next gate? As the battle raged on, both sides locked in a fierce clash of wills. Suho found himself growing increasingly desperate. The enemy wasn't going to back down, and neither was he. But then, like a bolt of inspiration, Suho realized he wasn't just going to beat them with brute force. No, he needed a brainy move here. Something smart. He needed to find their weak point. And that's when he saw it. His opening. Like the plot twist in a bad rom-com, it came out of nowhere. With the agility of a seasoned acrobat, maybe a ninja in a past life, Suho leaped into the air, sword raised high like he was about to perform a dramatic slow-motion scene. His target, a hobgoblin's eye. Smack! The blow landed perfectly, and boom, the creature collapsed to the ground in a heap. Suho blinked in surprise. Whoa, that was fast. He hadn't even meant to do it that quickly. Oops, he muttered to himself. Guess I'm just that good? After a quick self-check, he mentally told himself, okay, next time let's kill mode, more careful planning. But before he could get too carried away with his impromptu victory speech, a massive hobgoblin appeared, charging at him like it had a personal vendetta. It was big. It was scary. It was probably the type of creature you'd never want to meet in a dark alley. Unless you're Suho, of course. His eyes narrowed. Game face on. No time to mess around. This wasn't the time for hesitation. It was time for Suho to make his move. He darted out of the way, rolling effortlessly like he was in some kind of action movie chase scene. You know the one, the fast and furious dodge scene that gets your heart racing? Yeah, that was Suho. He realized that, with a little finesse, he could actually learn from this. Dodge the attack long enough, and maybe, just maybe, I can unlock a skill. So, he did it. He dodged, and dodged, and dodged, until ding ding. Dodge skill unlocked. He didn't even flinch when the notification popped up. After all, this was just a typical Tuesday for him. Feeling a little cocky now, Suho decided it was time for a new challenge, parrying. He raised his sword just in time to block the hobgoblin's next mighty swing. Perfect. This was good. This was progress. And boom, another notification. Parry skill unlocked. At this point, Suho was basically a walking, talking skill acquisition machine. But enough of the technical stuff. It was time to finish this fight with style. Calmly, coolly, he closed the gap between him and the hobgoblin. The massive creature stood there, winded, its frustration palpable. Suho, now fully in control, delivered the final blow. The hobgoblin let out a squawk, not very menacing if you ask me, and fell to the ground with a dramatic thud. As sunlight filtered through the forest, illuminating the fallen beast, Suho took a deep breath. This was only the beginning. There were more monsters out there, more experience points to be gained, and Suho wasn't about to leave without earning them. Meanwhile, outside the gate, a few hunters were hanging around, looking like they were trying to decide whether to get in on the action or just grab a coffee instead. One of them muttered something about some guy running through the gate without permission, and another grumbled about how it'd be legendary if he died in there. Classic hunter talk. Never a dull moment. Back in the city, two suited men were pacing the cracked streets, looking lost and confused. They wanted answers. "Who's the guy who went into the gate?" they asked, and the firefighter shrugged. He wasn't sure either, but apparently this Suho guy had healed him and taken down a whole group of goblins alone. The suited men stared in disbelief. A healer? Taking out goblins? Now there was a plot twist they did not see coming. One of the suited guys couldn't shake the thought. Who the heck is this Suho guy? And why is he so damn good at dealing with goblins? The only logical conclusion was that Suho was either a healer who'd secretly been hitting the gym for years, or some kind of overpowered anomaly. Either way, they knew they had to keep their eye on him. If he made it out of the gate, they needed him on their team. Simple as that. Back in the enchanted forest, Suho was still making magic happen. With sword in hand, he sliced through hobgoblins with the kind of precision you'd expect from someone who just unlocked 2 major combat skills in a single fight. Each strike was like a brushstroke on a masterpiece of destruction. Hobgoblins fell like dominoes in his wake. But wait, one hobgoblin was still running away, clearly terrified. Suho smirked. This was too good to pass up. "Hey, go bring me some backup," he called after the fleeing hobgoblin, watching it scramble into the woods like it had just been asked to do someone's laundry. That's right, Suho was running the show now. Then, with a casual flick of his wrist, he checked his stats. Maybe it was time to adjust his points. Balance was key after all. He applied some bonus points, watching as his stats improved with each click. Next up, loot. He found a red crystal, a D-grade stone, no less, just lying there, waiting for him to scoop it up. 50,001 right in the bag. But wait, there was more. He found another stone tucked away in the hobgoblin's body. Jackpot! Now this was the life. But before Suho could start getting too comfortable, he felt a shift in the air. Something was off. He readied his sword, senses heightened. There was movement in the trees, shadows shifting with malicious intent. Here we go again. A whole new wave of hobgoblins emerged, eyes glowing with rage. Suho grinned. Time to level up. The hobgoblins charged at Suho like a group of rowdy kids at a candy store, but Suho was no ordinary target. He wasn't just dodging their attacks. He was dancing around them with the kind of grace that would make even a ballerina jealous. His sword sliced through the air, cutting down hobgoblins left and right like they were paper dolls. Each strike was so precise. It was as though he had memorized their moves and was just waiting to smack them with a textbook. The hobgoblins, on the other hand, seemed to think they stood a chance. Poor things. But the system notification popped up. Chief Hobgoblin level 20. The level 20? Really? Suho smirked as he drew his sword, his confidence practically glowing. This was it. The moment where he either makes a great boss battle montage or gets a one-way ticket to the respawn screen. No pressure, right? But he wasn't worried. This fight was more than just about winning. It was about rewriting his fate. "Let's make this interesting," Suho said, practically daring the Hobgoblin chief to try something, anything. The two clashed, and it was like watching a knife fight in slow motion. Suho was fast, precise, a blur of motion. The Hobgoblin chief swung its massive axe like it was trying to clear a forest, but Suho was already steps ahead. He dodged, countered, and made sure every swing was calculated. The Hobgoblin's swings were vicious, but Suho was like water, calm and unyielding. But then, like a plot twist straight out of a movie, the Hobgoblin used a special move. It unleashed a fear-inducing skill that froze Suho's muscles, locking him in place like he had just become the most unfortunate action figure ever. The system announced, Chief Hobgoblin use fear. Oh, come on, Suho thought, grinding his teeth. The fear practically wrapped around him like an invisible chokehold, but Suho wasn't the type to just give up. Mental attacks, huh? Fine. Let's see how this plays out. Even with no skills to fight mental paralysis, Suho had one trick up his sleeve. Pain. He gripped his sword tighter until blood dripped from his hands. Nothing says, I'm still in control, like pushing through your own pain, right? The system chimed in. Fear's status broken. He was back in business. And with that, Suho swiftly dodged another axe swing, landing a clean counterstrike on the hobgoblin. The thing was stunned, like it had just been told its favorite TV show was canceled. But Suho wasn't done. He mopped up the smaller hobgoblins like they were nothing. One swing, two swings, boom, they were out. With the annoying distractions taken care of, Suho's focus was back where it belonged, on the chief hobgoblin. The two stared each other down. Suho wasn't just fighting for victory. He was fighting to level up, to become stronger. This was the kind of challenge that made all the sleepless nights and grinding worth it. The chief wasn't letting up. It swung its massive axe, and Suho barely managed to dodge, each movement bringing him closer to victory. But this time, every strike was heavier, more deliberate. He wasn't just reacting. He was calculating, setting up his final move. Finally, with a force that could shatter mountains, Suho lunged forward, plunging his sword deep into the chief's chest. The hobgoblin screamed, but Suho wasn't finished. He wanted to break the creature, make it feel every ounce of struggle, and maybe get a little XP while he's at it. With a final twist of the blade, the hobgoblin fell. But Suho, with a grin that said, I'm a legend in the making, didn't stop there. He used his healing energy, bringing the dying monster back to life. Why? Because why not? Suho wasn't about to waste a perfect training opportunity. He repeated the process, heal, kill, heal again. By the time he was done, the chief hobgoblin was nothing more than a pile of bones. And Suho? He was a beast. The system notified him. Victory. Chief Hobgoblin defeated. All hobgoblins eliminated. MVP. The glow from his healing energy made the place look like it was blessed by the gods themselves. And the stats? Oh, the stats were looking good. Healing Light had leveled up, and a new skill, Cure, had been added. Soon, status ailments would be a thing of the past. As Suho walked away from the battlefield, his mind wandered to his next adventure. He felt stronger than ever. Time to move on to the next challenge. Outside, the people were in a frenzy. They stared at the gate as if waiting for the next episode of their favorite series to start. And then, like a hero stepping out of the shadows, Suho emerged. His aura was so powerful it practically made the crowd gasp. The whispers began. Did he really do it alone? Suho didn't need to answer them. He jumped down, landing gracefully, as if he were a celebrity stepping onto a red carpet. Meanwhile, scouts from various guilds swarmed him, each trying to get a piece of the action, all introducing themselves like they were hoping for a follow back. But Suho? He didn't care about any of that. With one cool move, he brushed past them and walked away. Now, if you're enjoying the Suho show, don't forget to smash that like button, because with him around, the adventure's just getting started. Suho walked with purpose, like someone on a mission. He moved toward a man in a suit, extending his hand confidently. The man, caught off guard by the sudden gesture, stared at him like he had just seen a ghost.